Hello everybody, Vigo Shadow here, and today we have another unit that came out, finally part 2 of the summer event here. We have Lady of Elegy, Elisabeth. Now, this one's going to be a green attacker unit as well, and it's been kind of waited for a little bit because it does take a while for the other unit to finally be here. It did take me a little bit to get around to this video, but enough rambling. Let's just get right into it. Just take care of the details right away. Let's go ahead and go into the max stats here. Rank 18, going from power to healing boost there if you want to pause and see. And then from healing boost to overheal we have. And then lastly, there is the grouping of just vampires, so just keep that in mind there. Let's just see the full art background, but let's swap this back to initial here. Let's go to the background, and I actually really like this background because she's holding a bunch of different items like corn on the cob, squid, cotton candy. It's also my cat in the background trying to announce himself and eject himself into the video as well. And then, of course, the mask. I love the mask, and she actually does put it on in one of her ultimates there. If you haven't noticed it in the background yet, she does, like, actually put the mask on here. Yeah, right there. That is cool, how that is done. Usually the masks just hang off to the side and stuff, but that's very cool that that happened like that. Let's go ahead and go into the skills right away, what everybody's really looking for here. Summer's Eve pair. So let's go ahead and check that out here. So we raise the damage inflicted for all allies based on the total bleed stacked on all characters in battle. So again, yet another character that feeds into this bleed stack category here. So, on all characters in battle, multiplied by 2% for 10 seconds with the max of 100% damage inflicted, which would be very, very nice, by the way, if you can cap that out. But that would require 50 stacks of bleed, but I think that's manageable, actually, with being multiplied by 2%. So if everybody gets 100% damage inflicted for 10 seconds, that's really good, because people are going to be hitting hard with that. But also inflicts 1,600% damage on a single enemy. I'd say that's kind of like a little bit more on the weaker side of ultimates go, but and then further inflicts 50% damage multiplied by the total bleed effects. Now that is where it is at, because if we have and that's going to make up a lot of the difference. I'm just going to tell you that right now, because if you have a lot of bleed stacks on the battlefield here, then not only could you get like potentially damage inflicted for all allies based on the total of bleed stacks, you can also get this, and this doesn't seem to have a cap. There is no max, so you can probably hit the damage cap if you have enough people causing bleed and or bleed to you guys as well. So that's actually pretty busted if we look into the stats there. With no damage cap whatsoever, or no damage cap whatsoever based on bleed. So, so if we did, let's say 50 stacks, because that would be 100% damage inflicted as well. So 50, that'd be like what was it? Because if we did 50 times 50, let me just do some math here. That'd be 2,500% damage inflicted as well. So 2,500% damage inflicted is ridiculous. I'm just saying that. Probably easily one of the best ultimates, because not only are you doing it once with 1,600, you're also doing an additional, let's say, like, we're going to use the max value here on the damage inflicted, 2,500% damage. That is busted. Now, if we just take a look at this Awakened, we actually do this with a max of 200% for the damage inflicted, and that is absolutely crazy. You're probably hearing this little guy in the background. He's like making a lot of noise. He's very vocal, but yeah, he just wants to be in this as well. We have 2,000% damage on a single enemy, and then also further inflicts 100% damage multiplied by its total bleed effects, and we go from like 2,500 damage, let's say. Let's just multiply that by 100 here. We got 5,000% damage multiplied by total of bleed effects. This is the most damage you could ever get. If you had 50 bleed stacks on the battlefield, not only are you hitting like with a whopping 2,000% damage, you're also hitting with a whopping 5,000 if you had the cap. And this is actually a higher cap here for the 200%. So, and this goes beyond. So you're going to be like probably definitely hitting the damage cap. With the further inflicts damage multiplied by the bleed effects. Now, what I'm hoping for this unit is the fact that it does cast a lot of bleed. So, and this being a vampire unit, I would hope so. So let's just go ahead and go into skill 1. Hidden technique is busted if you had the bleed stacks for sure. Also, it's really good in general for the damage inflicted as well. Blood ring toss is the next one here. And we do have a bleed move, which is nice. So we have inflicts 400% damage on a single enemy with the lowest HP. Inflicts 5 times bleed on all enemies within 100 centimeters of the target enemy for 20 seconds. I don't like the fact that it's a target and it's within centimeters, but the fact that you can cast bleed on multiple enemies and not just being that single enemy is a better option than just having one, you know. Having it on a target centimeter area is better than having just it be on one single unit. So. And with this, when it's awakened, you get 3 more stacks of bleed and 100% damage. Forget the 100% damage because that's pretty garbage, but the 3 stacks of bleed probably will help in the long run for sure. So that's pretty worth. I think that's kind of worth actually, maybe like a mid to low on how worth that is for awakened. Impish Fireworks is the skill 2. Let's check that out. 150% damage on all enemies. Further inflicts magic blockage for 10 seconds. Now, magic blockage is, I'd say it's not bad. It prevents them from using some of their magic abilities, like their skill 1, skill 2s, or you know, some of their skills. But yeah, it's not the most desired here. I would rather have another maybe 10 more stacks of bleed. The magic blockage is kind of weird. And the damage is not really good. This is probably this might be the worst part of her kit, because I'm assuming the special ability is better. And with this being awakened, it's absolutely way worse. The thing about this one is, yeah, it's on magic blockage on all enemies, not just one. So that is good, at least for that. But man, I think that's probably the worst part of her kit, regardless. I'm maybe not a bad skill, but there's definitely something better that could have been there. More bleed stacks would have been more desirable. Special ability is Lady of Elegy. Let's check that out. Start of the wave. Raises attack, defense, and speed of all allies by 10% for each species in the party. Now, this is the thing that she is advertised for, so you're going to want to find as many species as possible. So throw in a human, throw in an elf, throw in a therianthrope, throw in or she's already a vampire, so that already fits one of the quotas here. Now, if it's just basing it off these 4 things, I think I don't know if they just count these specific species in the parentheses. Now, somebody may correct me in the comments later about that. But I know that there is some specific units, there is demon units, so that might be a new species in there in the mix too. But regardless, I think you could probably have at any given time maybe a max of 5, unless you are having a unit that kind of double dips. Like having a human and vampire. I'm not sure how it clashes there, but either way, let's just say 40% cap for now, just for the sake of it. Having 40% alone, maybe even 30% of attack, defense, and speed of all allies, that is a really good move for sure. You have 3 areas on all allies, which is absolutely excellent, and promotes mixing and matching with the teams, which is absolutely great. I mean, you can't really ask for anything better there. You just got to have the units to back that up. Not just one unit, and guarantee you're double dipping for sure, with this being a vampire and then pretty much every other unit either being human or elf or therianthrope. Also, when awakened, it's 15%, so you go from, if you had 2 species, that's 20%, and then if you had 2 on when it's awakened, that's 30%. So that's, even though it's just 5%, that 5% is very significant, I think. So you want to see that on the roadmap probably early. Now this is the part I'm most curious for, is the link gear, because we've seen in the past some link gear is really busted. Let's check that out here. At the start of the wave, lowers healing boost of a single enemy with the lowest HP by 80% for 30 seconds. Further inflicts 10 stacks of bleed. There it is. More bleed going on to other people. That's exactly what we want. And that bleed lasts for 60 seconds. So that is a very significant bleed effect. You'll have that stacking into every other thing that you can bleed with, which is very, very good. Now, of course, with this unit, you are going to want to pay attention to the enemy bleed stacks and your bleed stacks as well, so that you can find the most amount possible and then finally hit that hidden technique. And most likely, you're probably going to reach that damage cap on that second hit. The fact that it's multiple hits is absolutely amazing. Now let's go ahead and check out the Awakening roadmap here. We have Impish Fireworks, worst part of her kit for sure. At least you get 2 times magic blockage, which is pretty good. It's 100% of the skill user's attack, so that'd be 2 of those stacks there for 10 seconds. Better one is this one here, the Summer's Eve Affair, which is the 2. It goes up by the damage. The max damage inflicted would be 200%, and it has a little bit more, so 400% more on the damage there for sure, and then 100% damage multiplied by the total bleed effects. That's probably the best part of her kit, or that's probably really good to see in the roadmap there. A2 is good, so we have A1 being poor to mid, A2 being great, A3 is the 3 more stacks of bleed, so I'd say that's pretty mid. 4 is Magic Gear slot, trash. We don't, or maybe, yeah, kind of trash. We don't really need that extra Magic Gear slot there. Lady of Elegy, and this one is probably one of the best parts for kits. That's really good, so great. That goes into great status for sure. A2 is probably comfortable if you don't want to feed too much into this unit as well. Depending on how much your team is able to bleed away the other team, then you might not need that extra 50%. The extra damage does help a little bit too. But, yeah. Now let's essentially go into the breakdown of this character for sure. The biggest question is, should I pull for this unit? My question to you is, how good is your team with bleed? That is the better question. Because essentially, all she can do is throw down 5 stacks of bleed on one of the skill 1s, or skill 2s. I think it was skill 1. 5 stacks of bleed on base, no awakened. And then you also have that magic gear that has 10 stacks of bleed for sure. Let's just go ahead and double check that. I want to make sure I got my values correct, because I think we hit max on it. Yeah, because all that changes is, yep, still 10 stacks of bleed there throughout the whole wave, which is great. And this bleed is 20 seconds, so you may be able to get maybe 5 more stacks of bleed in there. So if you tally that up together, maybe best case scenario would be 20 stacks of bleed. So if we had 20 stacks of bleed times that 50 for that ultimate there, that is 1000% damage. So that's actually very decent for just that. So it works very well on its own, but if you have extra characters that can bleed, that's even better. So if you already have a bleed team set up going on, I would definitely go ahead and pull for this unit. This unit is actually very, very great too. Even if you don't have all that stacks of bleed, there is something in her kit that is very well worth the pull for her, and that is going to be the Lady, or not the, yeah, the Lady of Elegy special ability here, because you have raises attack, defense, and speed of all allies by 10% for each species. Now that is absolutely crazy. Having 10% in every category, I'd say 20%, you'd at least need 20% in every category, is absolutely amazing for sure. Sure, there might be some other units down the line, or something that could be better than this unit down the line, maybe in a Shadow Festival unit or whatever. I know the demon units are pretty good for sure, and especially if you have like demon units for sure, or like Demon Delta. I think she does bleed. I believe. Well, actually, I don't think she does. But it's been a long time since I've actually looked at her kit. Either way, regardless, whatever unit it is in your party, if you have units that cause bleed, I already made this example for the Aurora as well. For the new Aurora, If you have the other Aurora, which is this one here, the Fighting Words Aurora, she actually gives off quite a bit of stacks of bleed, 7 stacks of bleed right off the bat, and then also inflicts bleed on all enemies, so that's 5, or depending on how many enemies are on screen, one stack of bleed being the boss case scenario, if there's only one of them. And she actually does quite a bit of bleed effects there, so I mean, I think it's pretty good having her in there as well. But if you're also mixing and matching teams, which there was no color restriction on that unit, you can also feed into other units that are going to cause bleed, which, let me just bring up the other Aurora here, the red unit Aurora, which is right here. She actually does way more stacks of bleed, two times bleed on all enemies, right there. 5 stacks of bleed on her skill 2, and then 5 stacks more bleed on enemies 100 centimeters as well. So she is actually very reliable for bleed for sure, more than Fighting Words Aurora, but if you want to stick to the green color, of course, that's the way to go. We have this unit here. Let's see if I could find her here. She is a blue unit, however. She does 1 stack, or like at least 1 stack of bleed, which isn't really much, so it's not worth pulling her or getting her on that type of bleed team scenario here. Mainly between the Auroras here, and then whatever else you can find that can do some bleed as well. Like I said, I don't think you're going to need a lot, because you're already doing 1,000, like if you just use that kit, best case scenario, just for the Elisabeth alone, you are going to be doing 1,600% damage, right? For the first hit, which isn't bad, but the second hit, you're going to be doing 1,000 if you time it right, which if you tally that up, that's 2,600% damage, still crazy amounts. So if you actually throw in another unit that can do bleed, maybe Red Aurora, if you can mix and match and get away with it, that's gonna probably maybe like put you even further to where you're probably getting a 2,000 in there for your other hit, or like maybe even a 3,000 if you depending on how stacked your teams are. This has so much potential for bleed teams and mix and match. Definitely a great unit for mix and match. So it's not like she's just gonna be on the green team, and if she's not on green, she's just flat out dead. You can mix and match this unit. I think she's definitely worth the pull for an event unit, and we haven't seen a lot of Elisabeth. So if you are a fan of Elisabeth, I'd say go ahead and pull if you're planning on using bleed teams. However, if you're not planning on using bleed teams, then I'd say it's probably better to just pass on this type of banner. With that being said, I did put a lot of words into this, and there always is much room for debate, but either way, I gotta stop, otherwise I'll just keep on rambling. Vigo, signing off.